Uh, Atmik, I have a question. I think you didn't attend the last class. Were you able to watch the recording of the previous class?
Yes.
Okay, fine. So let's start. Just do a recap of what we did in the last class. The screen is visible, right? Okay. Uh, so I think the last class we discussed about the different kind of design processes, what you need to go through, and it was defined, define research, analysis, then it's design, prototype, test, launch, and iterate. So we'll do two things in this class. We'll see what is defined and how do you do research if you're going to do say for an app, how do you go about these two things, right? We'll start doing that, but we'll first see what is research and why is it important. Uh, so the session it will be about user research and what is user research and why is it important. Uh, any product that you're going to build, like last class I told you, be it digital or physical, you're doing it for the user. You're doing it for someone to use it, and you're doing it to make someone's life easier, or you're doing it to solve someone's problem. It can be as simple as um, how do I tell you? Like the last class, that the example that we saw, right? The ketchup bottle. It can be as simple as that. But how do you go about doing the right thing? It's all about doing the research right. You'll have to do the research right. Only then you'll be able to identify who you're doing it for. First thing you'll have to find out is what is the problem, and who are the people who are facing this problem today, and how do we solve it. To answer all these questions, you'll have to do your research properly. Any company or any product that you do, be it small or big, without user research, I think you cannot do the right thing. You'll probably end up doing things that are not actually useful for the user, or things that are uh, things that are not very easy to use, or users might end up doing it differently than what you wanted to do it for, right? So this is where um, user research helps you understand what your users actually want and what the problems you're trying to solve for. So if I had to give some like examples of how a bad user research can lead you, I'll just show you a small meme, which is, so if you see this, why is user UX research important, right? So this, if you see, it looks like a very cute cup, which can hold obviously water, cup, coffee, tea, or whatever if you want to drink. This, when it looked at a stall where, say, original kadik pouring, if you're looking at it, from there you might see, oh, this cup is really cute, and you might want to buy it, right? But the moment you start using it, this is how you might feel about it. You might not even be able to use it properly. This is where user research actually helps you. It's not about just creating beautiful things, but it's also about understanding what the user is going to use this for, and then doing it the right way. So this is a small example that I can give you what a bad UX research can do. And I'll next move on to the next thing of, do you know what these two apps are? You might, I think most of you might be knowing. Can you know if you tell?
Reddit.
Yeah. And you guys know about Clubhouse? Yeah. So Thread is basically, I think most of you might know, or people, for people who do not know, Thread is an app which was introduced by Instagram. It was a competitor for Twitter. So you can, what you can do in Thread is basically you can upload statuses, just text-based statuses that you can post, and then you can have similar how you have on Instagram. You can have followers. So this was released in 2000, somewhere around 2019, but it didn't find the right people. So I think since it's weak, after like from the week it released. In the 1 week, it acquired almost 100 million users. Like people who were using Instagram wanted to try it out. They were all excited to try it out. But down the line, like 1 month later, the 100 million users came down to just 10 million. But why did it happen? Because the app didn't do proper research. They were not able to tell people what this app is for, and most of the users didn't even know what to do. Right? This is not actually an app that solved any problem for the user. It was just another social media app. That is how it was. So if it had done the right things of doing research for why is it even needed, like it didn't even define the problem or even define why it was actually needed. That is the first place. And since it didn't do that, it did not it did not know how to scale. After acquiring 100 million users, it didn't know what to do. It just had very limited number of features because it didn't have clear idea on what it is going to achieve or what it is solving for the user. It was not able to, and users also did not find any value using it. And if you see, it's also very hard to make users install a new app. Like, say, for example, if they are already using something similar, say, for example, a Twitter or an Instagram or other social media apps, like, why do you even have to install another one when you know it's not going to be any different from the other, right? And Clubhouse is second thing. That Clubhouse, what it does is basically Clubhouse actually become popular during the COVID times. So what it does is it allows you to create audio rooms where you can join and then talk to people. Why did this become popular? Because during COVID, none of them were able to move out, and we did not have, apart from our fans, we did not know what to do. We didn't have any entertainment channel. We didn't know how to spend our time, right? That is when Clubhouse came. And Clubhouse lets you create audio rooms and you can invite people. It can be any people. It basically allows you to, like how you have your Instagram ID or handle, right? Clubhouse also has something similar, a username. So if you can actually enter usernames and invite people to your audio rooms, and then you can talk to them. You can talk to them about anything. So people used to talk about, or people even conducted concerts, like music concerts within the audio rooms itself. So in that way, during COVID, Clubhouse was very popular because it entertained people who were locked within the homes. But after that, soon after that, when lockdown all was released, right? When people were allowed to go out in person, people met in person, and the concept of audio rooms was also adopted by a lot of other big companies like Twitter, Spotify, and all of them. So this standalone product was not able to compete with the other big companies like Twitter and Spotify. So soon after lockdown was over, uh, they didn't know what to do for the users. They didn't know, apart from creating audio rooms and making people talk to each other, they didn't know what to do. They didn't know what value can be provided to the users, right? So these are like very two great examples of how even big companies like Instagram and Clubhouse can lose its users if they don't do the research properly. um, Next thing I'll go to is so again, we'll do this. So this is like Netflix versus, all of you might be knowing what this is. But I think Netflix is a global company, right? Like Prime Video, I think their major target is the Amazon, but Prime Video is not being widely used by a lot of people. But when Netflix came into India, right, though it was a very globally popular streaming platform, when it came into India, it had its own challenges. It had to compete with a lot of other streaming platforms that are already available in India. Say, for example, Prime Video, Disney Plus Hotstar, Sony Live, Z5, Geo Cinema, and all of that. When Netflix came into the Indian market in 2016, Disney Plus Hotstar was the king of OTT platforms in India because it had its regional content. You can watch serials, you can watch like streaming, sports streaming. You can do a lot of things using Disney Plus Hotstar. So Netflix, when it came into India, though it was globally popular, it had to compete with all these players already in the Indian market. And Netflix didn't have a good run initially when they introduced in 2016. Not a lot of people, apart from people who were very rich and who could afford, like say, thousands of rupees every month, they were the only ones who were subscribing. People like us, they were not able to, like the user base of, if you compare Netflix and Disney Plus Hotstar when they came in, Disney Plus Hotstar was much cheaper, and Netflix was not able to compete with them. So in 2019, they did something. which helped them gain a lot of users into their platform. Do any of you know what is this? Can you guess? Okay, fine. So though they came in 2016, only in 2019 they were able to see a significant rise in the number of users subscribing to Netflix. But what do they do right? Because they did the research right of understanding the market. This is not typically related to design, but this is where Netflix, did the research right and then identified why were users not signing into their platform, but they were going into the other platforms, right? So what they identified is India is a mobile first nation. So a lot of them consumed content not just on the desktop or on the TV. It was mostly on the mobile. And since their plan started at 500 per month, I think with two screens simultaneously, and not a lot of people were able to subscribe to it, couldn't afford it. There was a lot of, because and India is also a price sensitive market. Indians don't pay, we don't pay to these subscriptions. Even for example, YouTube Premium, right? Not a lot of us pay for YouTube Premium. We still are okay seeing ads, or okay waiting and clicking on skip than subscribing to a YouTube Premium subscription. So India is a price sensitive market. This is what Netflix identified, and then they introduced the mobile only plan, which is 200 per month, I guess. And this significantly increased their user base. And Netflix introduced this mobile plan only in India. India is the first place where they introduced the mobile only plan. And then they later expanded it to other Asian countries, like, say, for South Asian countries and countries like Malaysia, Thailand, I'm not very sure, but countries like this, right? So this was one move that Netflix did right. This is basically the proper research that Netflix did and identified why were users not subscribing. And the second thing they did right was introducing the download option. If you see previously when they launched in India or when they launched globally, they didn't have the download option at all. But Prime Video and Disney Plus Hotstar already had it. Right. Why was this important? Again, Netflix, they were very resistant in introducing the download platform, because I think even their CEO also once said streaming is the future and nobody is going to download and view content offline, right? So this was their stance initially, but they eventually, came down and introduced the download option. Why? Because again, they did a research of um, why did they do it in India first, or why did they introduce it? Because in India, they also identified most of the people don't consume content, they don't binge watch, they don't sit at home, watch it, whenever they find time. Most of the people in India, when they consume content on a day-to-day basis, is while they travel. For example, they travel. A lot of college students travel for colleges 1 hour in the bus, and professionals travel in trains or buses for that matter, right? This is where they identified, okay, Indians consume content most of the times when they are traveling and when they are not at home. So, but the to challenge for the users to consume content when they're traveling is poor network, right? When during travel, you might not know when you'll have good network or when you'll have bad network. So streaming is not the right option. So what people do generally is they download content whenever they find there's good internet, and then they watch it while commuting, right? So this was the second move that also helped Netflix make the users stay within the platform. So they were not able to. Then this was another major problem where people who watch content during commute were not able to watch it properly, and then introducing the download option actually helped people consume content. So in this way, I think, and I'm not sure how many of you know that Netflix was introduced in the 1990s. It is, I think, roughly around 1995. It didn't start as a streaming platform. Netflix started as a DVD renting platform. What you can do, it actually started in America. So um, Netflix is a very what you say. It's not a small company, right? It's been there for a long time. It's a very big player, and the reason it is able to sustain for such a long time is it was able to do things right. And how do you do it right? By only researching, by only understanding the users that you're going to provide your service for, right? If you're not able to understand the user, say because it started as a DVD renting company, what you can do is you can go onto the Netflix website, just click on the movies that you want, and then give your email address, the DVDs or the CDs will get delivered to your house. This is how it started. But why did it come into the streaming platform? I think it did the research right and identified streaming is the future. Not a lot of people are going to use CDs or DVDs in the future. And then from there on, I think whatever CDs it had, it changed all of those DVDs and titles into streaming movies. I think that is how it started. And the reason it's been there for a long time is doing the research right. So this Netflix is one good example of research will help you a lot. Any questions so far? Okay, we'll move on to the next slide. So we're talking about the different type of research methods that we would be doing in the coming classes. But to give you a general idea of what the different methods are, there are four different methods. One is qualitative research, another one is quantitative, third one is generative, and fourth one is evaluative. So I'll be explaining, giving examples on what the first two means, qualitative research and quantitative research. So qualitative research is basically you'll have assumptions, right? So you know there's a problem, but how do you identify um, the user behavior around that problem? Say, for example, uh, today I'm saying I have difficulty in charging my. That's the example we are going to understand, right? So we'll just do about this. Qualitative research is focused on understanding user behavior, thoughts, and experiences in depth. Why is this important? As I said, only if you know how are users behaving today or how are users dealing with their problem today, what are they thinking about it, only then you'll be able to understand whatever your assumptions are, or whatever app or whatever product that I'm going to build, is it going to be in the right way? That is one. Quantitative research basically focuses on numerical data. Say, for example, now I know so there's a problem for someone to say, for example, what do we tell you? Hmm, what example can I give you? Okay, let's take this example of this. This is what you will be doing as your homework also. So a book exchange app, basically, right? So why is an app needed? I find difficulty when I was in college. The difficulty I had was where do I find my books for the next semester? Because say for example, I don't want to buy new books every time because I'm not going to use it. I'm just going to use it for that semester and it's not going to be used for the next one. So what I'll basically do is I go talk to the seniors and sometimes they might have it or sometimes they might not have it. So this was a very big problem when I was in college. And if I had to understand if this is actually a valid problem for everyone or is it just me, what I'll have to do is I'll have to go talk to my friends or I'll have to go talk to users who are in the same age group and then understand. So if I'm talking to 100 people, how do we validate if this is the right problem or not? So out of 100, if I'm saying, oh, 80 really said, yes, this is a problem for me also. So that is where quantitative research helps, right? So out of 100, 80 said this is a problem for them also. So now the hypothesis that I had saying, oh, this is actually, is this even a problem? I'm able to validate saying out of 100, if 80 is saying this is a problem, then it's definitely a problem. I'm going to solve for it. So instead of just assuming it myself that this is a problem, I'm going to talking to people and then getting quantitative data. Quantitative data is nothing but you are able to measure basically. It's actually numerical terms and you're able to say, okay, this is the number, this is what I got from speaking to people or anybody else, right? So quantitative research is basically the outcome of it is basically numbers. Um, we'll see about qualitative and quantitative research. So to understand that, we'll take the example of EV charging station finder app. So just for understanding the terms, we'll talk about, say for example, I'm going to build a EV charging station finder app. But why is this even a problem or why do you even need an app for this, right? So we'll have to define why is this even needed, right? So for that, we'll talk about is this even why, right? Because I think the Indian EV market is expected to grow from 3.2 billion in 2022 to 13.99 billion in 2029. So what does this tell me? So from this, you can say, okay, if the market is going to grow, why is it even important for me to build that? Or if the battery market says it's going to grow, or the EV market share is going to rise, what all does this tell me, right? You can ask me um, in the data laboratory, what am I going to do, or how is this even helpful for me, right? So I'm now saying because I have spoken to people who use EV vehicles, be it car, be it bike, right? So one of the major problems that they face, they don't know where to find charging stations. It's not as easy as how we fill petrol in our bikes, right? It's not like just a 2 minute job where you know wherever. But you might also know, even if you're not very sure. Even if, say, for example, you're traveling to an unknown place, you're not afraid about, oh, will I find a petrol station? You're not afraid of that, right? Because you for sure know I'll find it on the way. But that's not the case with EV, right? You never know where you have charging stations. So that's definitely a problem. But how do you validate this problem, or why is an app needed? Because do you really know? Because if you have seen out of 10 people that you see on the road, maybe one uses an EV vehicle, right? So from this, will you even, how will you go tell someone that an app like this is needed? Only for that, this data helps you. This you can talk to, say, for example, if you're really building an app, which is an EV finder, charging station finder, how do you go pitch it to someone so that it is so that they find value in it. So you can go tell them using this data, you can actually tell a story of, okay, this is the EV market. Even today, you might see not a lot of people are using it today. But since the market is going to expand by 2029, it is said it will be 100 times more than what it is today. So they'll understand, oh, it is definitely growing. And since the government is also helping people or encouraging people to buy more EV vehicles and giving them subsidies, the market is definitely going to increase. More number of people will start using EVs. So definitely making an app will benefit everyone else, right? So from this, you'll be able to define the problem statement. So this is definitely a problem, right? And the market is also going to go. This is why this kind of research of saying this is how you define, say, for example, you've identified a problem, but how do you define it saying, oh, this is what it is today and this is what it will be tomorrow. So I'm going to do it. This is the definition of what your problem statement is. So based on this, what I'm going to do, now I'm going to do user interview. Before doing this, so if you've identified um, you're going to do an app for EV charging station finding, right? So now you'll have to identify who are the users that you're going to target. It's not, you cannot go and do it for, you cannot go and do an app just like that, right? You cannot just go make a login screen, put two different screens on just a search on search button there and then ask them to search. It's not going to work like that. You now have to define after you're finalized on, okay, this is the problem that I've identified. I'm going to build an app for it, but who are you going to build it for? You need that, right? So you'll have to now define who are your user uh, base. That's what we call it. So here in this case, our user base is mostly going to be students, working professionals, and maybe homemakers. So these three are the major user bases that we can consider for this example, right? So, but why did I do this? Again, you'll have to go search on the internet or find people who are majorly using the EV vehicles, right? So you'll have to talk to them, understand who are the major users of the EV vehicle. You can go search on the internet just to get an understanding of which user base is, you can use Chat GPT. You can do a lot of things using the internet. So to just get an initial idea of who are your target users, you'll have to first finalize on, okay, this is the type of user that I'm going to build for. Now, if you see, we have three different type of users, right? We have fixed on, we have students, we have working professionals, and we have homemakers who are majorly using these EV platforms. But now, since I've identified my user base, now I need to go talk to them to identify what are their problems, how are they doing it today. If they're not able to or how often they charge, what are the difficulties that they face when they are for trying to find a EV station today. So I need to understand the behavior today of what are they doing today and what are the pain points, what will be better, what can be done better to help them find stations easier, right? So to identify these, why is this important? Only if you identify this, we'll be able to identify what all you need to put in the app, right? You cannot just go and design every feature that you think is the right thing. But it's not that. So go talk to the users. So you can come up with questions on, so for example, let's take this example. So these are some of the questions that you might go and ask the users, it be it students, uh, professionals, or homemakers. You just go ask these questions to them. How often do you need to charge your EV? Why is this question important? And the questions that you ask should also be centered around their problem. It should not be just like, do you drive your vehicle daily? It can be that, but I think the questions that you ask is also very important, because only this will help you gain insights on, um, okay, what should be major feature, what are the important things that the user are looking for from the app. So all these things will help based on the questions that you ask. So, say for example, how often do you need to charge your EV? So this will give me an idea of, now I go ask the same question to three different user groups. So, say for example, I'm asking students on how often do you charge your EV. They'll say, we'll also go one by one, right? I already have the answers for all of this. So often do you need to charge your EV for, right? So I've divided into three: students, professionals, and homemakers. So every day, I think it's students are 10%. Professionals are the ones who are higher in number, who are saying they charge it every day. And every 2 to 3 days, it's 35, 40, 30, right? So mostly the category is the first three. It's either every day, and the most number of people charge it every 2 to 3 days, right? Sorry. All the three type of category of users, the major number of sharers, they do it every 2 to 3 days. And what is the reason for this? I think most of them, or most of the EV vehicles, have a range of, say for example, 100 or 120. In bikes, if it's car, it's around, I think, 300, 350 maybe. So they exhaust the charge while they are traveling. Most of them travel to, students travel to colleges, professional travel to offices, which is around some 40 kilometers two way. So they'll drain the charge in 2 days of time, right? So that is the reason every 2 to 3 days they are charging it, right? And how do you come up with these options, and or how do you even, say for example, you might not, you might need to talk to 100 people or 150 people, but you might not do able to do it, go and do it in person, right? You might not find every 150%, or you might not know a lot of people who are using EV. But how can this be done? Maybe you can create a Google forms where you can include all these questions and these options as answers, and you can send it across WhatsApp, or you can ask your friends to share it with their friends and ask for to collect data, right? This is what we call it a survey. This is one of the research methods where you collect data. And you can also do two things: go talk to the users directly, and also send out Google Forms where they fill in all this information, and you collect the information. Based on this, we decide what are the features or what are important for the users. So how often do you need to charge? This is the answer that we got. And the next question is, what are the biggest challenges you face in finding a charging station? Right. Today, I think the most of the challenges are either the stations are too far from work or home or work, and the two places that they mostly charge is it's mostly at home, because people don't take it elsewhere. They are also afraid of, is the charging port really working there, or what will happen to my you know bike or car if I do it in a different place. All these, I think, could you buy 'em, they'll have it anyway. So charging station often in use, and they're also not aware of. Okay, I know if there's a charging station. Say for example, 2 weeks back, I've charged at a different place, right? Now when I'm going there today and it is out of service, I don't even know, and I have only 10 kilometers of charge left. Now I'm left with no charge at all. I'm not able to charge at all, because I didn't have a real time access of, oh, is the charging station active? It's still in use or not? That is also the second most problem that people face, right? And lack of real time availability info. This is what I told you. Like, there's no real time update on, uh, is the station active or not? And then expensive charging rates. So I think today in India we don't have a proper analyzing on you're being charged this much for. I think different companies, say for example, Ola and Ather, I think they gave it for free until last September. I'm not very sure. And then they charge. I think different companies charge it differently. There's no standard pricing uh, today. and hard to find stations in general. I think this is also one of the major problems where today how they do it is they do it within their uh, own app itself. Like for example, if they buy an Ether scooter, and all they need to all they can get is wherever they have the Ether charging stations. There's no way they can identify other charging stations where they can go and charge, right? So these are the problems that they are facing. And what do you currently locate charging? How do you currently locate charging stations, right? These are the different kind of methods that they do today. So it's mostly Google Maps or in-car dedicated EV charging apps. This is what I told you, dedicated EV charging apps or word of mouth. You talk to people and then someone tells you, hey, there's a charging station nearby, go do it there. Or random discovery while time. This is how people do it today. And then, okay, out of from all these questions that we asked them today, right? What all did we find? So why were these questions important? And how will this information that I got saying, okay, 25% students, 30% professionals, how is it going to help me? What all do I need to, or how do I understand, how do I get information from all these questions that I asked them, right? So, for example, we'll tell them from whatever questions we asked and for whatever data we have, what all did you find out is, excuse me, 30% of the users struggle with finding charging stations because it's too far from home or work, right? And 30% of the users highlight the lack of real-time availability. So if you see, I think these two have 30% of importance where people find it's either too far from work or home because it's not like they know where the charging stations are. The charging stations that they know today are very far away because they don't have a real-time visibility on any new charging stations that is coming in, that might be even just 5 kilometers away, but there's no one to update them on, right? So that is the problem, one of the first problems, right? And then the second problem is 30% of the users they don't have real-time availability of the system is inactive or not. So if they have that, it'll be easy from home itself. They are able to say, okay, the charging station near my college or near my office, if it's still in work, what I'll do is, even if I have just 10, 20 kilometers of charge and my college is around 15 kilometers, and if I know the charging station near my college or office, it's still active, I don't have to, wait at home and then take it to full charge and then take it out. I can just go with the remaining charge. If I know it's active, I'll just go there and charge it, right? So these are the major problems that users face. And 20% of the users are frustrated by charges. See, 20% of the users are frustrated by stations that are often not in use, right? So what this tells you is people don't know the real-time availability. They go there and don't only find out the charging station is not in use. This is really frustrates the user saying, what if they don't have enough charge rate? And then 30% of the users find charging stations expensive, while 7% struggle to find stations altogether. So, from all the questions that we asked the users, we are able to arrive at a quantitative data of saying, like, what are the now, because these two are 30%, we'll be able to identify, oh, these are the major problems across users. We spoke to three different category of users, and out of all the three, uh, everyone said the 30% is an accumulation of all the three, right? Most of them said they were not able to find charging stations. So this was the first problem. So from this, what you can do is you get the insight of what can be the first pain point that you're trying to solve for the user, right? So 30% of the users struggle finding charging station. So now I derive at a point where I know what is going to be the first screen of my app. I now know, even at a screen level, the first problem that I'm going to solve is help users find charging stations. That is the first thing that I'm going to solve. So how do you do that? Now we got the requirements of what all needs to be there within the app, right? So focus on location accessibility. This is the first thing that I told you. So based on your location, help them identify. It can be a current location, it can be a location that you're trying to enter. Help them identify the nearby charging stations. So based on the data that you got, you'll be able to segregate what all is important, what all is secondary, what is primary, and what all is secondary, right? So the primary information that the users are looking out of your app is show me charging stations that are nearby, right? And then real-time availability. So we'll be able to, if you do the research right, you'll be able to identify what are the primary items or primary pain points that I need to solve for the user. See, all this information on location accessibility, real-time availability, smart navigation, pricing transparency, all of this is important. But how do you identify this is going to be my main screen when the user lands on the home page? What is it going to be? Is it going to be showing the pricing of different charging stations, or is it going to be showing the nearby charging stations? How do you decide? How do you decide on what is going to be a landing screen? Right. This is where research helps you identify what is the main problem of the users today. So based on this, you'll be able to define user flows. You'll be able to define, uh, say, for example, do we even need users to pay using this app itself? So you need to identify all of that, right? So based on the questions that we asked, we are able to get the requirements of focus on location accessibility, real-time availability information. So what does this mean, right? So now focus on location accessibility is where now I get a thought of, oh, a map is really needed. So the first interface or the first home screen of my app is going to be a map where using GPS or using real-time location grant, I'll be able to identify, just tap on a click on the GPS icon, I'll be able to identify the location and then show nearby charging stations. So this will be my first screen. Now I've arrived at a point where this is going to be a primary problem that I'm trying to solve for. So this is where research helps you in identifying what you need to do and what you need to avoid also. Um, I think that's it for today's class, but I'll also want you to do some homework on an example that I'm going to give you. So for that, do you guys have any questions? Bharat, Amir, Atmika, Amulya.
No, sir, no questions.
No,
Sir,
Yes.
sir, focusing on the location availability, which is the 30% of the problem, we can
Mhm.
use maps only, right? Why do we need another separate app?
We can use maps, huh?
Yeah, if the same which you said, first screen will be the maps
Mm.
only in our
Mm-hmm.
app, which is a 30% of the problem, which are
Correct.
users facing. For
Correct.
that, we can use maps only, right?
Correct. Very good question. So what Google Maps does you or help you with today is just find the station, right? It doesn't give you real-time updates on is it really working, is does it not work, or what are the pricing points. It's not just about identifying just one problem, right? So if you see in this slide, so whatever I put here, this is one of the problems. 30% of the users struggle finding the charging stations. As you said, the users are solving this today. 30% of the users are solving this today by using Google Maps, as you said. But that's just one problem, right? They also have other problems of what is the pricing of that station, and is it in good condition, right? How far is it? It also depends on how far is it. And they don't these are the different thing kind of problems that they have, and using maps you can only solve the first one. You'll not be able to solve the other three. You'll have to depend upon users entry point, right? So now if you say uh, the station that you find on Google Map, how do you know if it's working or not? Someone should have updated it, right? It's up to the user to say I'll go update it, right? The data that you see on Google is always user entered information. So using map, you can solve that. But there are also other problems that people who use EV face, right? So we are also trying to solve for that. That is where an app is needed. Just stop presenting. One second. Just give me a second, guys.